Okay, we're doing a recording here where I am interviewing Wayne Suggs and Becky Addison of HomeVestors. My name's Adam Schneider, and I've been with HomeVestors for about 8 years. And the reason we're doing this recording interview is for a couple of reasons. One is that there's a lot of people who are considering joining HomeVestors, and we found it to be an efficient way if we can have an interview done that's half an hour or so and just send that onward to prospective people. And secondly, Wayne and Becky have done an incredible job building their brand and business in Fayetteville, North Carolina. They have so many people in Fayetteville who ask them to tell their story, and this makes for an efficient way for them to share the story with the people they do business with. So we'll probably be talking for about half an hour or so. And this is really about their investing career, their story, and their thoughts on HomeVestors. So we'll start with Becky. Becky Addison and Wayne Suggs, by the way, are business partners and marriage partners. So Becky, thanks for doing this on Sunday, Memorial Day weekend, May 24th, 2020.
You're welcome. Thank you, Adam.
Yeah, and Wayne, we'll say a quick hello to you real quick.
Thanks, Adam. We're happy to do it.
There you go. Nice to see you. Okay, so let's just start with what you guys were doing beforehand. So before HomeVestors, give a little background to your history, what you were doing from a work standpoint.
Well, I had been an administrator for most of my work life. The last job I did was with a pharmaceutical company, major pharmaceutical company in RTP in North Carolina, Research Triangle Park. And I had worked my way into being a technical writer for the company. So that's what I was doing. I was writing SOPs.
And
What
Wayne, real quick, Wayne, yours is a slightly different background. Tell us what you were doing beforehand.
Slightly after having my job eliminated, after about 4 different mergers in the area I was working in, I started gambling for a living and did that for 12 years. Fly out to Vegas numerous times a year. When I was at home not gambling, I was helping Becky with her technical writing because of a mechanical background that I have from being a millwright years ago.
Got it. So really, neither of you came into this real estate investing with any kind of a background, any kind of experience level, right?
That's right.
Nothing more than having sold a house before, but that was it.
Okay. So Becky, tell everybody how you transitioned and found out about HomeVestors and what your decision-making process was on joining.
This is one of my favorite stories to tell. I love this story. So I was Wayne and I were both living in Chatham County, which is sort of in the Piedmont. And my mother had already passed away. My father died suddenly. And I inherited my childhood home, which is in Wake County, Raleigh. And so I found myself suddenly a homeowner of 2 houses. And the house needed a lot of repairs, and I couldn't afford them. Called a realtor out there, and she was very nice and told me all the things I was going to have to do to get that house on the market to sell it. And I was very discouraged, didn't know what I was going to do. And I got a card from HomeVestors. And so I decided, well, let's see. We'll just see what happens if we call. And so some guy from HomeVestors just happened to show up and ended up selling my house to a guy named Adam Schneider with HomeVestors. And it turned out that I told people, I didn't sell the house for a lot of money, but man, I just love these people with HomeVestors. And so we stayed in touch with Adam, and eventually we sold the house we were living in and used that money from that sale to finance a private money loan for Adam to rehab a house. And that went really well and made a good return. And so when it was time for Wayne and me to decide what we were going to do with the rest of our lives, we said, hey, how does this work? How do you do what you do? And that's when we came into HomeVestors. So we've been on every side of this. I've been on both sides of the table now, and that's how I got here. Love
Yeah,
this.
very few people have the experiences ahead of time like you did. Thank you for sharing. Obviously, that was a fun transition there. So, what year was that you joined HomeVestors?
That was 2015, 5 years ago, just past our 5th year anniversary.
And the HomeVestors contracts as a franchise operator, they're 5-year contracts. So you have to make a decision on whether or not, after 5 years of doing this, you think it makes sense to renew or not. And have you made a decision on that?
Oh, that wasn't even hard. Yeah, we made a decision. Wouldn't you say, when we made our decision a long time ago, that we'll re-up if they'll have us.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So, so talk about the market that you're in. Do you live in the market, or do you live outside of the market? Is it small or big? Give some background on that.
Well, the the main market that we do business most often in is the Fayetteville, North Carolina, and uh, mostly in Cumberland County. However, the territory that we have with HomeVestors is made up of 5 counties. And if you look at a map, although we're about 35, 40 minutes away from most appointments in Fayetteville, we actually reside almost in the center of our territory. So it's not too bad, but because most of the business comes from Fayetteville due to the higher population and the rapid turnover due to the military presence of Fort Bragg and Simmons Army Airfield and Pope Army Airfield that are down there, most of our business is directed at that particular part of our territory.
So Fayetteville's about 45 minutes or to an hour from where you live. Is that roughly right?
Yeah, 45 minutes.
Okay. And do you go into Fayetteville every day of the week, or once or twice a week, or how does that work?
It just kind of depends. It depends on how many appointments we have that week. Um, we try to schedule, we work really hard to schedule things so that we don't get overwhelmed with having to drive too much. So we have scheduled things where we have certain days that we expect to go on appointments. Of course, that can change depending on need and who's calling us and what they need.
Okay.
But we don't spend every day there, but a lot.
Okay.
Yeah,
So,
probably average 4 days a week
Yeah.
okay.
in Fayetteville.
Got it. So, do you know how many houses you've bought since you've become a franchise
7,
operator? Say again?
70.
70 houses.
Yes.
Wow. That's a lot.
Yeah.
So what happens is you send out mailers to people's houses, or they catch you on because of your billboards
Right.
or the web, and they'll reach out to you, and then you'll coordinate and set up an appointment. I'm doing this just for people who aren't familiar with it. And so you'll have to go to a lot of people's houses and make a lot of offers because we're discount home buyers. Most people won't take the offer, but some people will. And out of that model, you've bought 70 houses. That's a lot of houses.
Yes.
So let's talk for a second about the disposition of the houses. So when you buy all these houses, do you watch Flip This House and try and have a dramatic, gigantic flip like they do? Or do you not flip anything, or do you keep them as rentals? Because some people like to do the rehab. Some people like to keep rentals in inventory, and some people like to simply wholesale to other investors. So what's your business model?
Ours was, because we knew nothing when we came into this, ours was follow the system. That's what we did. And one of the first things they taught us was to wholesale your first year. And when they say wholesale, they mean take the house and sell it to another investor. Don't try to rehab. So that's what we did. not knowing any better, especially at first, that's what we did. So we built our cash flow, we built our buyers list, we met people, we got to know people, and we learned the business for the first year. And that was working pretty well. So we kept doing it. And eventually we started doing rehabs. The beauty of it is that it's your business, so you can do what you want. You don't have to do it that way. Um, and that's the way we chose to do it, and it worked for us. But you don't have to do it that way.
Okay. Did you guys keep any rentals, or do you like to move through all your inventory?
We've always moved through all of our inventory, although we do want to start acquiring some buy and hold properties.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about the market. So when you started, you were the first people in that Fayetteville market, correct?
That's correct.
And now you have 4 or 5 operators in that market, right?
Yes, we have 5 now.
Okay. So what happens is, to catch everybody up who's not familiar with HomeVestors, is everybody in your ad council, your Fayetteville ad council, decides how much they want to advertise each month. They send the money to the home office, and then the home office reaches out to the ad council president, which is you, Wayne, and you decide how you want to use that money. So you do direct mail, and sometimes you'll do billboards for an outdoor presence, and sometimes some pay-per-click and stuff like that. And then the leads will come in, and on a rotation basis. Now that you have 4 people or 5 people in the market, is there ever any conflict, or do you each get your own lead and that's your lead? How does that all play out?
Well,
I want to answer the first part, and then Wayne, I want you to take the second part. The first part is, if you've ever been part of corporate America, you know that competition among your contemporaries is extremely frustrating, because you'll want to know something, you want to know how to do something, you'll call on somebody and they don't want to give up their secret, or they don't want to tell you how to do something. And the way that HomeVestors has planned this is to create an environment where you don't compete with each other, you help each other, because of the way that advertising is set up. So the first part is that for those of us who are a little more touchy-feely, we don't have to compete. We help each other, and there's nobody in this company that you can't call and get help. Doesn't matter where they're from. Any franchise anywhere in the country, home office, down the street, or somebody in your area. That's one of the things that I absolutely love about this, that you won't find in a corporate environment anywhere. And then when you can talk more about how it's set up.
The way everything is set up, with the ad council making the decisions as to how we're going to spend our monies collectively, and then calls coming in on a rotation basis, we're very fortunate in the Fayetteville area in that everyone on the ad council likes to take a look at what we're doing and could we improve, but we just simply haven't had any major conflicts about how to deal with certain things. Occasionally a lead who has called us will call back again from a different number, and they'll get one of the other franchise owners, and it's happened with us as well. And we simply reach out to find out who was it that this lead belongs to. So there really hasn't been any kind of animosity or rough patches in the road. Everybody works really well together.
Okay.
It's a good system.
Good to hear. So Becky, you made a comment about how strong a network is, in your opinion, for support. Talk a little bit. There's a lot of investors who do what we do, and they do it individually, independently, without a network system. So let's just sort of dive into the pros and cons of that. So obviously, if you're going to join a franchise, you're paying money. You're paying money up front, and you're paying money on each deal. And so people have to figure out if it's worthwhile or not, if there's value or not. in joining it because they've got to compare it to the cost they're going to have to spend. So talk for a second about maybe the power of a network, being part of a team, and where you think that that's got value, and talk a little bit about the brand, the HomeVestors brand, and if that's had enough value to line up with the cost that you had to spend to join.
Yeah, so never been part of a franchise before, so I didn't know what to expect. But one of the things that I found right off is the training that you get is outstanding. And then you come back from training and you get somebody who is like a coach. I don't want to use the word coach because it's not really coaching so much as it is backup. Somebody you can call for help. And then you have the entire network of franchisees who are not only going through the stage you're in, but who have a lot more experience. Some of them have different experience. You can call them and you can say, how did you do this? They give you software that is proprietary to the company that you can use, that makes your job so much easier, so that you're spending time working with the actual people instead of worrying about, do I have this right? How do I figure out this? So it's not just a network of people, but it's a network of tools that you can use to help out. And getting that kind of support and backup is huge. So yeah, you do have to put up money, and there are times when you have to spend money in order to get what you need. For example, having to advertise in order to get leads, and that can get scary sometimes, but you get so much out of it. And the brand itself is it's just incredible. Everybody knows who the We Buy Ugly Houses people are. Even when we first started here, people really didn't know who HomeVestors was, but they recognize that caveman. They know who he is. When you say We Buy Ugly Houses, people just sort of know. So it gives us stability. It gives us somebody that people recognize, it makes us have a lot more credibility. So it gives us a leg up. And then the support and the marketing, you can't beat that. So is it worth it? Oh yeah, it's worth it. Not to have to go out there and knock on doors and drive neighborhoods and put signs up and buy lists and not know who you're dealing with and not be able to see a house before you buy it, which is what a lot of people have to deal with.
Got it. So let's talk about the caveman. The marketing is We Buy Ugly Houses. Have you run into sellers who are put off by it, that they're insulted, that you've just sent them a piece of mailer that says We Buy Ugly Houses, we want your house, and they have pride in their house? Does that happen?
Well,
you can answer that one.
I can tell you this. You get some people that are upset that you send them a mailer for anything. But as far as being upset about the caveman, never. I haven't run into that, not one time. I have had people call and say, well, my house is not ugly. And we simply laugh and say, yeah, that's the company's tagline. We understand that usually it's an ugly situation, not necessarily an ugly house.
Good point. Very good point. Okay, so no problems really with that, and you feel like you get a lot of help because of the branding on that. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay, so you've been doing it for 5 years. Well, let's shift over to the systems when you got started. So there's two kinds of people really who join HomeVestors. You're going to have people who were already investors and perhaps were dissatisfied with the leads, and they're looking for more leads. That's their initial thought. And then you're going to have people like you and like me who came into real estate investing for any number of reasons but didn't have any experience. So when we go into a house and we look at a house, we need to figure out what the heck the thing is worth, get it an after repair value. That means we need to be able to comp it, and we need to figure out what the repairs are. So what software, what systems, what training did you get from HomeVestors so you could know how to do the darn job of evaluating what the value was if you aren't a real estate agent, and to evaluate the repairs? So talk a little bit about how that all works for you.
There's an array of software. Did you want the names of them or just what
Sure.
they do? Okay.
Yeah.
So the first thing that they provide for us is called Value Check. It's a proprietary software that is pretty much where you put in the comps that you come up with, and then you put in the repairs that you come up with, and Value Check does all the hard work for you. It takes all the information you put in it, and it tells you what your best offer is. It doesn't mean that you have to use that, but it gives you your best offer. Not only that, but it allows you to communicate with your various coaches. It allows you to send that information up to the corporate office if you want to use it for loans. So it's something that is very versatile. Then there are several subscription services that you can be part of. One of them is called Red Bell. Red Bell they're subscribed to almost every MLS service in the country, and it is extremely versatile, and it allows you to pull any MLS listing that has been up for however long, and you can use the Red Bell system to run your comps, look at houses that have been on the market, see what they used to look like in previous listings, what they look like now in a particular area. You can tell it all kinds of things to run your comps. It's extremely useful. They have other tools that you can subscribe to. One of them is called Lead Dog, where you can go out, geolocate where you're sitting in your car, take a picture of a house, and then if it matches certain criteria, you can have mailers sent to it. So those are just three of the tools that come right off the top of my head.
Got it. So do you feel like you are at a disadvantage by not being a licensed real estate agent, or do you think that's not really a problem at all?
For me, it's not a problem. I'd rather actually not be a licensed broker. I've thought about it, and it works for me not to be. Some people are. We have a lot of people in the company who are, okay, but it's better for me not to be.
Okay. So you started 5 years ago. You didn't know anything really about it, and now obviously if you've been able to buy 70 houses, you've certainly learned some stuff along the way. Knowing what you know now, what would you have done differently that first year?
What do you think?
During the first year, what would I have done differently? That is a good question. I don't think we would have done anything differently the first year, for the simple reason that since we came into it not knowing anything, and knowing now that first year worked out quite well, I don't think I would change anything. We did nothing but buy homes and wholesale them, and it worked quite well for us, and well enough that we did it for another year. Okay. Before we ever rehabbed our first house. So.
Okay. So some people in the industry, they'll put a property under contract, and they'll assign the rights to that contract, meaning they'll sell the paper, they'll sell that contract, and they go on their way. And other people, not that many outside of HomeVestors, but others will take title and then go ahead and market the property. And both of those sort of get called wholesaling. Essentially, you're selling a property without doing a big fix-up. So for you guys, do you mainly assign properties? Do you mainly take title to properties? Or is it a bit of a mixed bag with that?
It's a really good question. We mainly wholesale by taking title. If we're going to wholesale, that's what we normally do. And I'm sure Wayne will attest to this as well. When we first came in, we made a decision to do that for two reasons. One, because it actually makes more money than simple assigning. But the main reason was because we have the opportunity to follow the sale all the way through to closing with the people that we have sat down with in their living room, and they trust us. And in this particular area, there are a lot of people who don't have money, and they come in and they make a lot of promises and offers, and then they don't show up. And we wanted to overcome that by showing up, being at closing, and making sure our reputation was to be there. So we chose to wholesale by closing.
And you've clearly done a gigantic job, a great job of building your reputation and being a key force in the market. Let's talk for a second. You had mentioned earlier, Becky, about the fact that you can take loans out from HomeVestors. Can you just talk for a little bit about how that works? Because this is obviously a cash heavy intensive business when we're saying that we're buying houses for cash.
And why don't you talk about loans here? That's sort of your area.
When we first got started, one of the things that was attractive about getting a HomeVestors franchise is that once they accept you and you accept them and everything is signed and monies are paid, well, they're going to guarantee you funding as long as you're buying homes based on the criteria that they teach you. Then they're going to provide you 100% funding to purchase and rehab that home. And so, value check is set up so that all of the pertinent information that they need to make a decision to approve your loan is in that proprietary software so that we could send it up. And as the money's not free, they're providing you a way to borrow the money to buy the house and do the rehab. But what's great about it is that the money that they provide from first loan through the third loan it gets better each time as far as interest rate and points and that sort of thing. So once you've got experience and you're proven to them, then you can just continue to do that. That's where we started.
Got it. So that's become a bigger issue right now. We're in the middle of COVID. And so a lot of the hard money institutional lenders have paused their lending, and it's made it difficult for some people who haven't built up enough of a strength to have local investors or lenders to help them. It's nice to be able to have HomeVestors there, but it may not always be the best choice. And you guys have built a really strong reputation. So you've got private lenders who also are glad to give you money, right? Correct. How long does that take? How strong has your relationship been, and how much notice or how much information do you need to give to get someone to feel comfortable lending you guys money now?
I think that's one of the things that you learn from the people who are here to help you and coach you. You learn how to build those relationships, and just like any relationship, it takes a little bit of time. But we're with the private money lender that we typically use now. It's so simple now. It's a matter of our lender knows that we know what we're talking about. We meet the criteria that they're looking for. If there's any doubt, we'll talk about it. But it's pretty simple now. We fill out an application. We have any discussion we might need to have, and once it's approved, I know the money's going to be there, and it is there every time. So after a while, you just build up those good relationships.
Got it. So. Okay. So if there's someone thinking about joining HomeVestors, it's not all going to be perfect. It's not all rosy. There's all these things we've talked about so far that are great, and the brand is a powerful part, and the systems are a powerful part, and having access to the money and the leads having something to do it. But what are some of the things that you think someone considering it should be mindful about as they're making a decision if they want to join or not?
Yes, I don't want to sound like this is a cult and everything is perfect and that you don't have to work hard. I think the hardest thing I had to learn when I came into this is, yeah, it's my own business and that's a really great plus. But when it's your own business, there's no backup. There's no net to catch you. You're the net. So you have to know that you're taking a risk and you have to come up with that money every month to advertise. And you need to be able to come up with enough money to make that phone ring. And that's hard to do sometimes. It's very hard to do sometimes. It's scary. And at first, those first a lot of months, it's hard work. You're going to be putting in many hours that you may not have expected to put in. So some of that is hard to do, especially if you don't have kind of the relationship that Wayne and I have where we're working together. If you're working and your spouse isn't quite as understanding as, as time goes on and it gets harder. So those would be some of the challenges that I would think you're going to face coming in. Not that it's not worth it. It is. It's just, you got to look for that.
Right. So if you're just getting started, you've got all this money going out, you might find a property, you put it under contract, you buy the property, but you still haven't sold it. So you've done all your work to earn your money, but you haven't actually cashed the check yet. And so maybe a number of months before that goes, you may not have a pipeline. So people should definitely have a certain runway of cash available as they're getting started, right?
Absolutely. That was something that they told us at training, is that on average, a person comes into this business and starts their franchise and starts advertising, starts going on appointments, that on average, it's about 3 months in before they buy their first house. And I heard it exactly the way they said it, on average. It doesn't mean that some people don't buy a house real quickly. And it doesn't mean that it doesn't take sometimes 5 months to buy their first house. So I heard that and I understood, okay, we're probably going to go about 3 months before we start getting some results. Now that's what was in my head. And about 3 months in, right out of the blue, it seemed like we had 4 people in a 24-hour period accept our offer. Wow. Where no one had up until that point. Now, one of those fell through, but we were super excited. And then we realized, just like you said, oh crap, now we got to sell them.
Right.
And so now you've got to take off your buyer's hat and put on your seller's hat. But we ultimately made it through the process to see how the whole thing works. And once you do that, then you can identify some of your strengths and your weaknesses that you need to work on in the business, and then rinse and repeat.
Got it. And would you say that this is a very consistent business or a very lumpy business?
It's consistently lumpy.
Yeah, lumpy would be, hilly would be a better word. You're riding high in April and shot down in May.
Yeah. So it's really difficult in the beginning because you don't have the confidence, you don't know that it's going to bounce back and all that. But now that you've been doing it for a number of years, so you sort of know that it's just going to happen but it's over a little bit longer period of time.
Yeah, it really is one of those things where when things are not going well, you get to the point where you sort of laugh about it. You're going, well, this is one of those troughs that I've hit. And then when things are going great, you're like, hey, it's going great, but I know it's not going to be great forever.
Right.
So yeah, you just get used to it. It is that kind of business. Here's the thing though, it's my kind of business. I get to run this. And I can't beat that. I don't care how lumpy it gets. Sometimes
Right.
when I'm really poor, I kind of, I don't love those times, but I still sit back and go, it's fine.
Right. Well, you touched on it a little bit about you. It's how much energy you put into it. Talk about how it's been for you guys from a work-life balance. Have you been able to do things you wanted to do and have flexibility, or do you feel like you're unable to do what you want to do?
Sometimes I feel like everything goes into this, and then we are able to plan and have what we want. And I think it's sort of, for me, again, coming from a corporate background, I can make a decision whether today I'm going to do something different than this. Am I going to do something different than buy houses today? Am I going to schedule a time to take a vacation? So you don't always have the money to go for a vacation, but you can choose to do something fun today where you can't do that with corporate America. So
Right.
for me, that was a big deal.
Right.
For other people, it might, nobody's going to pay your 2 weeks, but,
Right.
but
And
that's
yeah, and you guys, because of the way this business is, you may have a lot of money, but it's in the shape of a house.
right, tied up.
It's
Right.
it's tied up on that with the rehab, and then you sell the houses, and then you have all this cash lying around,
Yeah.
and then you're worried that you don't have inventory, and then you buy more houses, and you don't have the cash lying around that you had. So it's all going to sort of even out and balance, but it certainly goes up and down. What was your best year that you guys have had?
Wayne?
Probably 2018. That was probably the best.
Hmm.
And I'll tell you why. I got an answer as to why. Because you think you're really good after you have the first successful year. You think you're doing great, and you get lazy, and you don't put the same energy level into it, and so that's the other thing about this company. They bring you to training, and they make you come back to training all the time. You go to training and you learn this is how you cannot be lazy, and then you come back and you have a really, really good year. And that's why you have, in that middle year is just really good, and then you start getting going, well, I did it that year, I can kind of ease off a little bit. And so if you don't protect yourself against that, you'll have that
When
one
you
good
talk
year.
about a good year, are you talking about how much money's in the bank, or how many houses you bought, or is there something else that you're measuring that as?
I was basing it just on cash flow.
Okay, got it. That's a good way to do it. I just wanted to make sure that we were lining up on that, on the same page on that. So we're getting close to the end. There's a couple other things I just want to touch on. So a lot of people came from a sales background, and it may have been a business to business sales culture or a small dollar, high volume kind of thing that you're selling. But we're really in a different environment. We're dealing with people where we go into their home and we're asking them if they're interested in selling their home, which may be the largest decision they've ever had to make, at a discounted price. It's got a lot of emotion tied to it, and certainly that the skill sets that are involved to be able to make decisions that work for both the seller and for the buyer, and dealing with all the emotion and the psychology and the moving parts, it's a tremendous amount of skill sets you have to have. So you have to have some kind of a natural ability, a certain way about you, but you also have to have some training and some you learn by experience. So talk about what it feels like to go into the homes, talk about the sales training that you've received and if you've implemented it or not. And if there's any maybe stories that you think really made you feel good about a couple of people who really didn't have very many options and you really helped them out, that'd be great to hear.
I I didn't expect that I would be so much of a salesman when we started. I've always been a people person. I've always enjoyed people. The opportunity to go sit in people's houses and hear their stories and learn about them has been the most rewarding part of all of this. I've met some of the most interesting people with the best stories ever. Some people who, frankly, I didn't want to meet, but mostly it's been the that's the part I love most. I could just do that all the time. And then you have that's another tool that you get from HomeVestors is the opportunity to be trained how to be a really polished, good salesperson in ways that you never thought about. Because I've been trained how to be a salesperson before, and you get some training that'll turn everything you thought you knew upside down, and gives you a way to learn more about how to draw people out and learn more about what they need and how to meet that. So for me, that's been the best part, is sitting in their living room and learning about them.
Do you have any particular story where somebody really felt like you really helped them and they didn't know where else to turn?
Gosh, there are a lot. We've got a lot of hugs. We really have.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any one particular one, Wayne, that stands out for you? I mean, the one that I think keeps standing out for me is
the one on Townsend.
Yeah, that's a good one. We bought a house from a woman whose mother had passed away, and we were dealing with the daughter who'd inherited the house, and the daughter had grown up in the house, so the situation was similar to mine, and she was emotionally very attached to that house, and it wasn't in terrible shape. It had just, of course, it was older and it had run down, and she cried every time we met her. She cried. Because
Wow.
she didn't want to get rid of the house, but she didn't want to keep it. And
Okay.
so she was emotionally just so wrapped up in that house. And to navigate through that was really special for me, because I helped her learn to let go,
Mm-hmm.
because I knew how to do it. And even on closing day, we just held each other and cried together. And we still text each other once in a while. She was extremely happy with the way that the rehab turned out. I rehabbed that house. I always called it my love house, because I love the house so much. And then I put a lot of work and soul into the house. But yeah, she was probably the one I got closest to, because I understood her the best. But she hugged me a lot, and we did cry.
Well, that's a good story. Thanks. Wayne and Becky, is there anything we haven't covered that you think is important to touch on?
I can't think of anything, Adam. Not off the top of my head.
No, I think we've covered most things that I would have wanted to know.
Got it. Well, I really appreciate you guys taking your time out today to talk and to share your story, and you do it with such authenticity, and I think it just comes across that you're real people and you have real challenges and real successes, and you do it with just such a great amount of energy and emotion. So thanks for doing it. We're going to wrap this one up.